Vietnam just approved a 1,500-kilometer high-speed railway, and for the first time in the region, a country is building major infrastructure on its own terms, not Beijing's. That decision alone is about to redraw the entire economic map of Southeast Asia. Here's why it matters. To understand why this rail line matters so much, you need to understand Vietnam's position in the world right now. Vietnam is one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. In 2023, it attracted over $36 billion in foreign investment, more than any other country in Southeast Asia, per capita. Companies like Samsung, Intel, and Apple have poured billions into Vietnamese factories. Why? Because something massive has been shifting. For 30 years, the world built everything in China. Cheap labor, efficient supply chains, massive ports. It made perfect sense. But then things started changing. Trade wars, COVID, rising costs. And suddenly, every major company on Earth started asking the same question: what happens if we can't rely on China anymore? The answer for hundreds of companies was Vietnam. Samsung makes more than half of its global smartphones right here in Vietnam. Apple has shifted AirPods and MacBook production here. Nike, Adidas, LG, the list goes on. Vietnam has become what experts call the China Plus One hub. The idea is simple: don't put all your eggs in one basket. Keep some production in China, but build a backup, a second home, somewhere else. And Vietnam raised its hand. But here's the problem. Vietnam is shaped like a long, narrow letter S. It stretches 1,650 kilometers from top to bottom, roughly the same distance as driving from London to Warsaw. And for decades, moving goods across that entire length has been slow, expensive, and unreliable. Construction of the existing railway started under French colonial rule in 1899 and took nearly 40 years to complete. Its infrastructure designed for a world that no longer exists. Trains on that track today crawl at an average of just 50 kilometers per hour. The journey from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City takes 30 to 35 hours. For a country that wants to be the logistics backbone of Southeast Asia, that's not good enough, not even close. So Vietnam made a decision that would send shockwaves through the region. In late 2024, Vietnam's National Assembly approved one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in the country's history, the North-South High-Speed Railway. Here are the numbers, and they are staggering. 1,541 kilometers of brand new track, running the full spine of the country, 23 stations connecting every major city and province along the route. A top speed of 350 kilometers per hour, that's faster than most commercial aircraft cruising altitude speeds over land. The journey from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City cut from 35 hours down to just 5 hours and 20 minutes. The estimated price is around $67 billion. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the entire GDP of a mid-sized country like Croatia or Kenya, being poured into one single rail corridor. But here's what makes this project genuinely different from every other rail project in Southeast Asia right now. Vietnam made a deliberate, strategic choice to lead, with domestic financing through government bonds and state investment. The Deputy Minister of Transport was direct about it. Vietnam wants to avoid loans that come with conditions attached. Foreign partners may still be involved. China is even being considered for portions of the project. But the key shift is this: Vietnam is setting the terms, not inheriting them. That's a fundamentally different posture than anything we've seen in this region before. Construction is expected to begin late 2026 to 2027, with the first sections targeting completion by 2035. And for the technology and engineering, Vietnam turned its eyes toward Japan and Europe. Japan's Shinkansen system, the gold standard of high-speed rail, has operated for over 60 years without a single passenger fatality. That's a safety record almost nothing else in the world can match. Vietnam wants that. Vietnam is building toward that. This isn't just a train, it's a statement. To truly appreciate what Vietnam is doing, you need to look at what happened to its neighbors. Just across the border in Laos, China built a railway too. The Laos-China Railway opened in December 2021. It cost nearly $6 billion. And Laos, one of the poorest countries in Asia, took on massive debt to make it happen. A large portion of the construction loans came from China's Export-Import Bank. The railway was built almost entirely by Chinese companies, using Chinese workers, running on Chinese standard gauge tracks. That last part matters more than most people realize. Chinese standard gauge is slightly different from international standard gauge, which means trains from other countries can't simply roll onto those tracks. If you want to use the Laos-China Railway, you're playing by Chinese rules. Full stop. And what happened next? Laos is now facing a serious debt crisis. The country owes so much money to China that some economists describe it as being in a state of debt dependency where, to keep the lights on, Laos has to keep making concessions to Beijing. What kind of concessions? We're talking resource rights, land rights, port access. The quiet, slow transfer of leverage from a small country to its much larger creditor. This is what analysts call debt trap diplomacy. Now China disputes this framing. Beijing argues it's simply offering development financing that poor countries couldn't access anywhere else. And there's truth in that. Western banks aren't exactly lining up to fund jungle railways in landlocked nations. Some economists go further, arguing that Laos's crisis has as much to do with its own fiscal mismanagement as with Chinese lending. But the outcome, whatever the cause, is undeniable. Laos is struggling. And the railway, rather than lifting the country's economy, has largely benefited Chinese freight moving through the corridor. Thailand saw this happening and pumped the brakes on its own China-linked rail project. Plans for a Thai high-speed rail connecting to the Laos network have stalled, been redesigned. Delayed. The Thai government quietly renegotiated terms multiple times. And Cambodia is navigating its own careful balancing act with Chinese-funded infrastructure projects that have raised eyebrows from international observers. Vietnam watched all of this very carefully, and Vietnam said, "Not us." What's unfolding across Southeast Asia right now is, in many ways, a railway arms race between two economic superpowers. China has been aggressively pushing its Belt and Road Initiative, a massive global infrastructure program with railways, ports, and roads connecting dozens of countries back toward Beijing. It's the largest infrastructure program in human history. Some estimates put the total investment at over $1 trillion across more than 140 countries. The strategy is elegant in its simplicity. Build the infrastructure, lock in the standards, control the corridor. Japan has responded with its own counter-strategy. Tokyo has been pushing hard to win infrastructure contracts across Southeast Asia, not just to make money, but to maintain influence and offer an alternative to the Chinese model. Japan's pitch is different. Higher upfront cost, but transparent financing, international engineering standards, and crucially, technology transfer, meaning local workers and engineers actually learn how to build and maintain the systems themselves. Vietnam's North-South Railway sits right at the center of this rivalry. By anchoring its project to Japanese-aligned technology and international financing models, Vietnam is essentially sending a message to every country in the region. You have a choice. And the geopolitical ripple effects are significant. If Vietnam's rail succeeds, if it delivers on its promises of speed, efficiency, and financial independence, it becomes a model. Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, they'll all be watching. The question every infrastructure minister in Southeast Asia will be asking is, can we do what Vietnam did? And the companies already flooding into Vietnam are paying close attention too. Because here's what changes. With a 350 km/h spine running the length of the country, goods produced in the factories of northern Vietnam, near Hanoi and Haiphong Port, can now connect to southern Vietnam's distribution networks in hours, not days. That transforms supply chain math for every manufacturer in the country. A company making components in Hanoi can now serve customers in Ho Chi Minh City, and vice versa, with a speed that rivals air freight at a fraction of the cost. For the global companies already here, this is a multiplier. For the ones still considering the move, it could be the deciding factor. But zoom out even further, and there's a bigger play here. Vietnam isn't just building a domestic railway, it's positioning itself as the primary logistics gateway for the entire Mekong subregion. The Mekong connects 6 countries: China, Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. It's one of the most strategically important river and trade corridors on Earth, moving hundreds of billions of dollars in goods every year. Right now, much of that trade, especially the manufactured goods flowing toward global markets, has to navigate fragmented, slow, and expensive logistics networks. Vietnam's high-speed rail changes that equation. Imagine goods produced in Cambodia or southern Laos loading onto connecting transport networks, feeding into Vietnam's rail corridor at Da Nang or Hanoi, then moving south to Ho Chi Minh City's ports and out to the world. Vietnam's ports, particularly Laos-China near Haiphong in the north, and the expanding Kai Mep terminal complex in the south are already being upgraded to handle significantly higher cargo volumes. The rail line effectively stitches together Vietnam's two major port clusters with a high-speed backbone. And if Vietnam can attract Mekong sub-region freight onto its corridor goods that currently flow through Chinese-dominated routes, it captures both the economic value and the geopolitical leverage that comes with being a transit nation. This is what strategic planners mean when they say Vietnam is building a new center of gravity for Southeast Asian trade, and China is watching all of this very closely, because a Vietnam that controls the Mekong logistics corridor is a Vietnam that can operate independently of Beijing's infrastructure ecosystem, a Vietnam that offers neighboring countries an alternative route to global markets, a Vietnam that becomes slowly, methodically a counterweight in the region. That's not just economics, that's power. Vietnam's north-south high-speed railway is scheduled for phased completion with key sections targeted for 2035 and the full corridor operational by the late 2030s. That's not tomorrow, it's not even soon. In the scale of national infrastructure, a lot can change. Costs can overrun, politics can shift. Natural challenges in a country with mountains, rivers, and coastlines all along the route will test every engineer involved. But the decision has been made. The money is being allocated. The ground is being prepared. And for the first time in years, a Southeast Asian nation is building its own future on its own terms without handing the keys to someone else. The real question is not if Vietnam can build this railway. The real question is, what happens to the countries around it that didn't? Laos is already deep in debt. Thailand is still debating. And China's Belt and Road network, despite its scale, is starting to face resistance it never expected from countries that looked at their neighbors and decided the price was too high. Vietnam may be a small country on the map, but sometimes the most powerful moves in geopolitics happen quietly, 1 kilometer of track at a time. If you want to understand the next major shift in global supply chains, keep your eyes on that 1,500-kilometer line. Don't miss the next video shown on screen. Hit subscribe, and we'll see you there.